Okay, now we're live. I would like to call this meeting to order. We were having some computer problems for anyone listening. This is a public meeting as required by Section 42 of the Drainage Act to afford affected landowners an opportunity to make representation with respect to the engineer's report regarding the Marr Drain. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing and hearing none. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the technical aspects of the engineer's report for the Marr Drain. Concerns regarding individual assessments will not be dealt with until after the final report has been considered, adopted, and a provisional bylaw passed. A meeting for the quarter revision regarding assessments will be scheduled at a later date, and notice will be mailed to every owner of every property that has been assessed into the subject drain. Mr. Brooks, would you like to review the process, please?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. This drain report was petitioned for under Section 78 of the Ontario Drainage Act. The municipality appointed Jeff Dixon of RJ Burnside to prepare the report. The first version of this report was filed and was subsequently appealed at the Drainage Tribunal, where it was ultimately referred back to the engineer for revisions to the report. Subsequent delays associated with the Lake Road Diversion Drain has delayed the filing of this report until this time. Tonight's meeting was scheduled after the report was filed by RJ Burnside, and all those properties assessed to this drain have been sent notice of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Would you like to introduce Mr. Dixon, please? I guess I can. Jeff Dixon of RJ Burnside and Associates. He's going to be summarizing the report for us. And he's been having computer problems getting in, or we have, or whatever, but he's on the phone and he will, Jeff, if I could call on you now to give us a summary of the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, that's fine. Go ahead.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to present information. We'll deal with the Marr Drain first, I believe. And as Jeff alluded to, this was a project was initiated, the report for this project was initiated under a request for an improvement in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act. If you're following along in your report, if it's the PDF version, you can turn to page 138. If you're following in a paper version, I'm referring to drawing 1 of 4 in Appendix I. You'll notice on this master watershed plan, a heavy black line with dots on the inside of it. That's the external watershed boundary, which delineates all of the lands and roads within the watershed of this particular project. That watershed encompasses approximately 241 hectares. And it is located to the west of Carlow Road and Kettle Creek, and is in parts of it are in the former village of Port Stanley, and there's portions in the township of Southwold. The drain line is shown in a blue line on that plan, consists of a main drain, which has a combination of open and closed drainage features. And then there's also a branch A, which is a closed system. The Lake Road Diversion Drain, which we'll deal with in a little bit later, is shown in the bottom of that master watershed plan, and it is also a tributary to the Marr Drain, as Jeff also alluded to. The drain outlets into Kettle Creek at station 0+00, and that can be seen a little bit better if you go to page 139 in the PDF, or more particularly drawing 2 of 4, enlargement 1. The proposed improvements to the existing drain are all on that property at civic address 297 Carlow Road, Village of Port Stanley, and the major items of work include relining approximately 50 meters of the drain, complete with a riffle and a pool structure, filling the hatched or white portion of the existing drain, which will be abandoned in order to stabilize an eroding and unstable drain bank, which was the main reason for the request for the improvement. And the third item is to extend the existing private crossing on that property and incorporate it and make it part of the drain, because it is currently not part of the municipal drain. At the various meetings with the stakeholders, including municipal staff and representatives of agencies, there were no concerns expressed about the capacity of the Marr Drain. Accordingly, there's no changes proposed to the capacity of the existing drain. The only consideration that was given for capacity is the realignment portion of the channel on 297 Carlow Road was designed to duplicate the capacity of the portion of the channel being abandoned, and that was a request from the Conservation Authority and Fisheries and Oceans Canada. It's also important to understand and note that the building envelope of 297 Carlow Road and the driveway off of Carlow Road to that residence is quite elevated. The majority of the rest of the property, including the location of where the drain is prone to flooding in the spring and after heavy runoff events. Another unique feature of this project is that the drain actually crosses from the municipality over the boundary into the township of Southwold. That's a rather unique feature of this drain. Many drains are all enclosed or encompassed in one municipality. And to that end, if one was to follow the letter of Section 74 of the Drainage Act, it dictates that the extent of a drainage works that lies within a municipality shall be maintained and repaired by that local municipality. However, it was agreed that due to the sewage treatment facility, Central Elgin be responsible for and undertake any maintenance on the entirety of the Marr Drain, including the portion that lies within the township of Southwold. And this approved arrangement was passed by the Council of the Township of Southwold at its regular meeting on Monday, January 11th, 2021, as Resolution 2021-060. If we go now to the various appendices of the report, beginning on page 36, Appendix A, this contains the allowance schedules and the calculations of the allowances provided under sections of the Act. No right-of-way was provided under Section 29 of the Act because there were allowances for right-of-way provided in a 1991 report by Spreed and Associates for the Marr Drain. However, there were some allowances as described and calculated in that appendix for damage, and they are to compensate the property owner, the owner of 297 Carlow Road, for the impact of the construction. It is also important to note that these allowances are not significant compared to what we often provide for agricultural drains, but in order to satisfy the concerns of the landowner, restoration and reseeding, hydroseeding, etc., will be done as part of the work that the contractor will be bidding on once this project goes to tender. So that's why the allowances are not as much as they would normally be for a purely agricultural drainage system. Appendix B, beginning on page 40, is a breakdown of the project cost estimate. The project's estimated to be worth $109,900. Appendix C contains the various schedules, not only the schedules for assessment for construction, but also the maintenance and repair schedules. And these were discussed with the two drainage superintendents, drainage superintendent for the township of Southwold, as well as the drainage superintendent for Central Elgin. There are 3 maintenance schedules for the main drain and 1 for the branch drain. Moving on to Appendix D, this is where I have for many years included all of the calculations on the determination of the assessments for the various properties. That appendix begins with a fact sheet from OMAFRA on how landowners can understand drainage assessments if they've not been involved in a municipal drain before. And then Appendix D1 through to Appendix D4 inclusive are all the calculations used to determine those assessments. Complete transparency so that everybody knows how they were determined. Of interest to the affected stakeholders and the municipality, but not bound into the report, there should have also been some loose leaf sheets at the front of the report that may look quite similar and should look quite similar to Appendix C1, C2, and C3. However, these loose leaf sheets pages also show on the right-hand side in red font the net assessments for each property. which is calculated by taking the gross assessment to a property minus any applicable OMAFRA grant, which only applies to the properties registered with the farm class tax rate, minus any allowances. In the case of the Marr Drain, the only property receiving allowances is 297 Cardinal Road. It's also important to note that the final cost for the project will be prorated based on the actual cost at the end of all of the work and after all bills and invoices and fees to Conservation Authority, if applicable, have been paid. Appendices E and F are the various specifications that govern the work and will be used by the consultant and the drainage superintendent, who is going to assist us in the site review for this project, because it's a rather small one, for the contractors, and it will govern the construction. So those are on pages 64 and 74 respectively of the PDF version of the report. That's Appendix E and F. If we move then to Appendix G, on page number 85 of the PDF document, that is all of the agency documentation and the approvals from Fisheries and Oceans Canada, federal agency, and the local conservation authority, namely Kettle Creek Conservation Authority. It also contains a technical memorandum that was contained in the original report that was referred back to the engineer, that describes the design that was done by a geomorphologist and a natural channel design expert to prove that we have matched the capacity of the existing drain with the proposed realignment, and included a riffle feature to enhance habitat and fisheries. Also contained in that appendix, you will note that we've received a letter of advice from DFO for the project. And it is important to note in regards to that, no in-water work is permitted between March 15th and July 15th of any given year. That is the timing window in which we cannot work. We can work from July 16th up to March 14th. And similarly, we've also received a permit from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority. Appendix H, beginning on page 100 of the PDF of the report, contains documentation from the 1991 Spreet report and some drawings for the sewer outfall. This appendix was included in this report to assist the drainage superintendent with the future maintenance of the drain. As already alluded to, the only location on the Marr Drain that the work is being proposed is at 297 Cardinal Road. But the drainage superintendent for Central Elgin, as noted previously, in the maintenance section that's being done and the maintenance work being done by Central Elgin on this entire project, we thought it was important to provide all the documentation that superintendent would need to be able to maintain the drain. So we've got copies of the 91 plan and profile that show where the various pipes and open sections of the drain are located, the various structures. And then we also have included information and drawings from the wastewater treatment plant, because there is a portion of the drain at the upstream end above Lake Road, closer to Scotch Line, wherein the sewer from the outfall of the lagoons is located below the bed of the drain. So it's important for him to know that it's there. Lastly, Appendix I is the drawings that we've created for the project, and there are 4 of them, and they are, as I said, indicated drawings 1 through 4 inclusive in Appendix I, and that commences on page 137 of the PDF version of the report. In closing, we'd like to thank the Council, Municipality Central Elgin, for allowing us the opportunity to present this improvement report. We would be remiss if we did not recognize the significant contributions and assistance of the Drainage Superintendent for the municipality, as well as the Drainage Superintendent for the Township of Southold. We sincerely thank all stakeholders for their input, patience, and understanding, and we would be pleased to try to answer any questions and address any concerns at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I'm going to ask, first of all, the Deputy Clerk, has there been any correspondence concerning this?
Madam Mayor, no correspondence has been received.
Thank you. Do any members of council have any questions for Mr. Dixon? Mr. Fair, Councillor Fair, go ahead.
I was just wondering if this is actually going to be presented to the public. I mean, the way it was danced through so fast, I don't know if the public would understand most of it anyway. The way it went through so fast is that there's a lot of pages here, and it's really would be an awkward presentation because I don't think anybody could follow it very well.
The
Diane,
public, all of the affected stakeholders, Councillor Fair, were provided a copy and it was mailed to them 10 days prior to this meeting, a paper copy of the report, and every affected stakeholder that's been assessed in accordance with the report is bound by the act to receive a copy of it 10 days prior. So the members of the public have had that copy in their hands for some days. In fact, there were some landowners in Southwold that I believe had the copies of the report delivered to them.
Oh, okay, because I would just thought if this is the presentation, they wouldn't understand it at all, but they've all got it, then I take it.
That's correct. And I'd sooner address questions instead of taking an hour to present slides and go through it in detail. And so that's usually the philosophy that we adopt. Plus, we've been in communication with a number of the stakeholders, especially in the last few months, on both of these drainage projects. So they're familiar with some of the things that we're proposing relative to the properties on which the drain is located and situated.
thank you. Are there any other questions from any members of council? I'm not seeing any. So if anyone has signed the petition wishes to withdraw their name from it, they may do so now by putting their withdrawal in writing, signing it, and filing it with the Deputy Clerk, Diane Wilson. You can email her at dwilson@centralalgon.org. Anyone who has not signed the petition and wishes to do so may add their names to the petition at this time by contacting Diane Wilson, dwilson@centralalgon.org. Before I open the floor to questions from the affected landowners, please be advised that if any affected landowner wishes to receive further information on the actions of council regarding the Marr Drain, please email Diane Wilson, dwilson@centralalgon.org, or contact her by phone at the municipal office, 519-631-4860, extension 286. We will now open the meeting to questions from the public. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be answered in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. Mr. Perrin, is there anyone who wishes to speak that's in the?
Seeing none, Madam Mayor.
Okay. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the Marr Drain, please email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgon.org, or contact her by phone at 519-631-4860, extension 286. This meeting is now adjourned. The provisional bylaw has been placed on council's agenda for consideration tonight. And we can move right into the second one. Jeff, we'll go fairly quickly through it as well, just because we had these two and we're late starting. So this is a public meeting as required by section 42 of the Drainage Act to afford affected landowners an opportunity to make representation with respect to the engineer's report regarding the lake line diversion drain. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning this proposal? Seeing none, purpose of this meeting is to discuss the technical aspects of the engineer's report for the lake line diversion drain. Concerns regarding individual assessments will not be dealt with until, after the final report has been considered, adopted, and a provisional bylaw passed. A meeting for the Court of Revision regarding assessments will be scheduled at a later date, and notice will be mailed to the owner of every property that has been assessed into the subject drain. Mr. Brooks, would you like to give a review of the process to date?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief here. The drain report was petitioned for under section 78 of the Ontario Drainage Act by the municipality. The municipality appointed Jeff Dixon of RJ Burnside to prepare the report. Tonight's meeting was scheduled after the report was filed with the municipality, and again, all those properties assessed to this drain have been sent notice of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Diane, have you received any correspondence concerning this?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dixon, and give us an outline of this drain.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to make a slight correction on the statement about the petition. There was no petition for either one of these projects, Madam Mayor. So there is no opportunity for individuals to withdraw their name from the petition or add to it. These were both in accordance with Section 78 of the Act, not Section 4. So I just for the clarification of the landowners. So to reiterate what Jeff has indicated, this project was requested by the municipality, whereas the other one on the Marr was requested by a landowner on the Marr Drain. This drain was originally constructed in 1956 and is a tributary of the Marr. However, neither the 1968 nor the 1991 report for the Marr Drain assessed any of the lands or roads within the Lake Road Diversion Drain watershed for any construction, improvement, or maintenance of the Marr Drain. And in order to do so, a new report was required. Furthermore, and given this drain is 65 years old, it is also quite understandable that conditions have changed within this watershed, especially the urban area in Port Stanley along George Street, further to the west. Furthermore, there was no record of the Lake Road Diversion Drain having been maintained since it was constructed in 1956. Accordingly, this report was the result of a request for an improvement by the municipality in accordance with Section 78 of the Act. If you refer to the watershed plan, again going to Appendix I, the drawings, which is drawing 1 of 2, which is at the back of the report on page 92, if you're in the PDF of the report, you'll see this plan is quite similar to the one in the Marr Drain, except the portion of the watershed for the Marr to the north and a little bit or slightly to the east of the Lake Road Diversion Drain has been whited out. So we're now looking at the dark black line around the boundary, which is the watershed for the Lake Road Diversion Drain. It is approximately 112 hectares, about half the size of the entirety of the Marr Drain, which was 225. The drain is also shown on this in a blue line and consists only of a main drain that is open. The proposed improvements to this existing drain include disposal of the debris that resulted from the brushing and clearing of the drain corridor a couple of years ago that's been deposited on the drain banks, primarily on the property south of the golf course. A drain bottom clean out of property roll number 2-019-00, which most people know locally as the golf course, including the loading, hauling, and disposing of the resulting spoil in accordance with the new OREG, and improvement of the drain on the property under roll number 2-319-04, known locally to most people as the Kokomo development, I believe. That portion of the drain will be established with a minimum 1 meter bottom, 1.5 to 1.0 horizontal side slopes, and it will also include the loading, hauling, and disposing of the resulting spoil, as well as any necessary bank stabilization. There's some eroding banks that need to be stabilized and riprap. Similar to the Marr Drain, there were no concerns about capacity for the Lake Road Diversion Drain, so there was no change to the capacity proposed. The appendices in this report, Madam Mayor and Council, are almost identical to that in the Marr Drain, with one exception. Appendix A, beginning on page 33 of the PDF, is the allowances. Slight difference in this report in that there are allowances for right-of-way or use in accordance with Section 29 of the Act. We have provided a buffer on both sides of the drain for its entire length and a working space on the east or south side of the drain to allow excavation equipment to gain access to the drain and along the drain on the golf course property, and in a corridor that will remain usable for the construction or improvement and the future on the Kokomo development property. There's also allowances similar to the Marr Drain provided under Section 30 to compensate for damages for the properties during construction. Furthermore, and due to this distinct usage and operation of the property under roll number 2-019-00, the golf course property, and instead of paying a drainage contractor, who most drainage contractors are not landscapers and tend to restore agricultural properties, not urban or residential properties. So to that end, we engaged in discussions with the owner of the golf course property and had an agreement as to what the damage would be along the east side of the drain on that property if it was to be restored by that owner to his satisfaction. And the allowances contained in Section 30 of the Act, under Section 30 is contained in Appendix A, pardon me, and compared to an estimate that I did, it is significantly less. So we felt that that was the best way to do it and not have a drainage contractor try to restore the golf course property. Appendix B, beginning on page 37, is the project cost estimate, similar to the Marr report, which is estimated to be $198,000. Appendix C, starting on page 40, contains the assessment schedule as well as the maintenance schedule. There's only one schedule for maintenance, unlike the Marr Drain. This was discussed and agreed to by the drainage superintendent for the municipality. Appendix D contains the same information as the Marr. It starts on page 45, an explanation and a fact sheet on understanding drainage assessments. And again, all of the calculations that were used to determine the assessment for every property within the watershed, complete transparency. And again, there were loose leaf sheets similar to Appendix C1 and 2 that contain the net assessments for each property, which is determined again by taking the gross assessment minus any applicable 1/3 OMAF or grant, which is for the properties registered with farm class tax, minus any allowances. And those were primarily to the agricultural lands in the township of Southwold. The final costs, again, will be prorated based on the actual project cost. Appendix E and F, starting on pages 56 and 66 respectively, are again all the specifications to govern how the contractor will construct the work after the tender process has been gone through and a project or an award has been made. And Appendix G, starting on number 77, contains similar agency documents as were in the Marr Drain report. There's an aquatic ecology memorandum that dealt with the fish habitat compensation and protection measures. We've got a letter of advice from Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada for the in-water work. Again, it's not permitted between March 15 and July 15, so we can commence construction after July 15th, a calendar year, and go right till March 14th of the following. Similarly, we also have a permit from the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority. The last appendix is Appendix H, which is the drawings, of which there are 2. In closing, we'd like to thank Council for allowing the opportunity to present this report for the improvement of the Lake Road Diversion Drain. And again, we would be remiss if we did not recognize the significant contributions and assistance provided by the Drainage Superintendent for the Township of Southwold, as well as the Municipality of Central Elgin. We sincerely thank them and all stakeholders for their input, patience, and understanding. We would be pleased to try to answer any questions and address any concerns at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do any members of council have any questions? I'm not seeing any. Before I open the floor to questions from the affected landowners, please be advised that if any affected landowner wishes to receive further information on the actions of council regarding the Lakeline Diversion Drain, please email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgon.org or contact her by phone at 519-631-4860, extension 286. We'll now open the meeting to questions from the public. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, please dial *9. The questions will be answered in a sequential order. When given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the record. Is there anyone who wishes to speak, Mr. Perrin?
Seeing none, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the Lakeline Diversion Drain, please email Diane Wilson at dwilson@centralalgon.org or contact her by phone at 519-631-4860, extension 286. This meeting is now adjourned. The provisional bylaw has been placed on council's agenda for consideration tonight. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Sorry, we had so much
Thank you very
problems
much.
getting in.
No, not a problem, man. Technology is great when it works. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Thank you. I assume